Okay, so this is my 8.3 presentation. So, the first component of fitness test was speed, and I chose the 20-metre sprint test. This test is, of course, subject to human error in terms of you have to time it, which is dependent on sight. You need to see when they cross the finish line, and reaction time, you need to be able to hit the stop button at the same time. Which can obviously affect the end result, because you could be a second over or half a second over. It all adds up in terms of how precise the results are. Also, it's affected by the performer's motivation and physical condition. All of these factors affect the validity of results. If a performer's not very motivated, they're not going to want to do 3 lots of a maximal test. And if they're physically tired from playing a game the night before or haven't slept well, then they're not going to want to or be able to put in their maximum effort, meaning you won't get results true to their actual abilities. However, it is very cheap and requires minimal equipment, making it very easy for a college level performer to be tested with. Very easy for an untrained tester to use. It's not golden standard, as we know. The speed gate would be the golden standard, but this is quite pricey and would be more elitist maybe. This is a maximal test, but very short duration, making it very easy to do if the performer's willing. And it is a good indicator of maximum speed over a distance. And it's relevant to the performer's netball plays as a centre, because they will be sprinting short distances quite often to intercept the ball or put themselves in a better position for receiving a pass or to help set up a goal. So next I chose power using the standing vertical jump test, and with the map we used, it has a very precise measurement of height, making it quite high in validity and reliability, especially when doing it 3 times, as it removes human error in that it's the device strapped to the performer's waist that takes the height measurement. However, it's not necessarily the golden standard, as you can get pads that also measure the level of weight pressed down on takeoff, which would be a better representation of power, because you'd be able to see both height and weight put down. This would be much more reliable in that you can see the level of power used to propel to a certain height off the ground. However, the height itself can still be used, as after training you'd see changes in the height that they can jump. It's quite expensive still though, this mat, although not able to measure weight on liftoff. It's still quite expensive, around £200 to £300. It's very easy to use in that it requires very little training. It's more common sense in that you switch it on and strap it to the performer, and all they have to do is jump. It is subject to the performer's motivation and physical condition though, as they're not necessarily going to want to be putting in maximum effort to jump as high as they can multiple times. If they're tired or simply resistant to it, don't want to do it. There's minimal risk from the test, as I said, because it's all based on the device taking the readings, and it's relevant to netball in that a lot of the time, as a centre, you, my client, are going to have to be jumping to block balls or make an evasive pass or help even to catch ball. You might have to jump occasionally. So next, we obviously tested your agility. In this, we used the Illinois agility run. This is of course subject to human error as well, as you have to be able to time it and set it up correctly. So reaction time comes into play, and just knowledge of the layout. If it's not set up correctly, you won't get a measurement proportionate to other results and normative data. And obviously the motivation and physical condition of the performer will affect it, and that they might not want to do the full speed around the course, put maximum effort in, which means it won't be a good representation of their actual agility. However, if all goes well, it's very easy to do and set up. Not very time consuming, or are either of the other two tests we've just spoken about. They can be done in seconds, minutes at most. It can be very accurate. The Illinois agility can be very accurate as long as you time it exactly. And for instance, it's very cheap, as it only requires cones and a stopwatch. But as long as it's all timed or anything, it can be very valid and reliable. So the layout of cones and the layout of cones and the course itself are good for netball. As a centre, especially, you will be having to get around other players and quickly change direction. Given what's happening with play, defensive or attacking, you'll have to be used to moving around different circuits, different routes, often at quite high speeds and efficiently, in order to maximise your play. This test is maximal in that it requires a performer to go as quickly as they physically can, but it is one very short burst, so the recovery for it will not be anything too pressing. So then, obviously, we tested your flexibility, in which we used the sit and reach test. This is subject to human error in that the tester needs to very quickly take down where your fingers are before you relax back out of the stretch, and this is done simply by looking at lines and across to the number. It's very easy for this to get mixed up or done wrong, so you obviously further that's affected by the motivation of the performer and their physical condition. Because you need to be willing to stretch out and hold the stretch in order to help keep your results valid. But if you are willing to do it, if you remain willing to do it, it can be quite accurate in showing the overall reach in a performer's hamstrings and back, lower back. But obviously, it doesn't necessarily show flexibility at all joints like the goniometer would do. A goniometer can do. With a trained professional, that's obviously a lot more reliable and a lot more precise in that it can show specific angle flexibility, which is much more useful. However, this is still quite a cheap option. It's easy to use and very low time cost. And it's still relevant to your sport. As a centre, you will need to be stretching to reach out, to block, or to pass and evade opponents. So flexibility is still a big part of your performance. And then we tested strength, of course, with the hand grip dynamometer. Now, in using the hand grip dynamometer, it's a relatively cheap piece of equipment and it's quite accurate in that the machine does the reading, and all you have to do is copy it down. You put in the age and gender of the person. We put in your age and gender, so the machine done it all based off of that. It's very simple to do, and it's highly relevant. The test itself is quite relevant, as you require strong grip and arms for catching to win the toss at the beginning between you and the other centre, and passing. All of these are really aided by good grip and strength in arms. Give you a lot better play to have this sort of strength. And then lastly, we tested aerobic capacity with the yo-yo test, as you recall. But unfortunately, this wasn't our golden standard. Direct gas analysis is probably more golden standard, as that can monitor exact gases exhaled and inhaled by you and the quantity being exhaled. Whereas with this, your VO2 max is estimated using tables, making it very indirect. And it can obviously knock the validity of your results. And of course, it's also subject to your motivation and physical condition, as it is very maximal and it's very demanding. You need to be consistently running. You don't really get a break. Of course, you get the small break, but you're still moving constantly. And if you're not motivated and choose to drop out early, it's not a direct show of how well you could have done. But if you are to go to you're physically exhausted and can't carry on, then it can be quite useful in getting a relatively good estimate of your VO2 max. It is very easy to conduct, very simple to set up and talk someone through. It can be very time costly, of course, depending on your speed and shuttle that you get to, but it is very useful for measuring your position as a centre, as you will be jogging, sprinting and walking throughout a game, so it gives good ranges of speed. However, I'd say the very latter stages may become slightly less relevant, as it will be continuously sprinting, which means it might not be quite as relevant. However, with the walking period, the 10 seconds of walking you get, it could still be classed as relevant to your game. So in all fairness, as long as the estimates are relatively accurate, it's reasonably valid to a non-concerning point. And then as a whole, so points for every single test we've done. To aid the validity of your results, we've done an efficient warm-up that covered your whole body, so your body was ready for each test. So different stretches and dynamic stretches, got the heart rate up, the muscles become more pliable, your body's ready to take on some more intense exercise, i.e. the testing. So yeah, the warm-up was to help with the validity of results, and that was a consistent warm-up. We obviously carried out every test in the hall on a typical netball court ground, so it's the surface, which made it more ecologically valid to you as a netball player. And of course this just once again helps with validity, ecological validity, as you are going to be working on your typical surface. It just gives you an idea of how quickly you'll be sprinting in actual games, and you're used to the ground itself. All of the tests have a very standardised protocol, which is they're all very easy to carry out, and there is lots of data around for all of them, be it on the internet or in sports books and everything like that, lots of sources to find normative data. So it's quite easy to compare and get a general idea of how well people your age and fitness level should be doing. Of course, we have little control over your sleep and exercise done through the week, what you've eaten and when, and obviously this can have an effect on your energy levels. All we could have done was just say to you, to eat a balanced meal, don't eat roughly an hour before the testing occurs, get a good night's sleep, and try not to exercise for the first few days before testing. But of course, that was down to you, and that is to your discretion, and if you do that, we can't stop you. All of the tests were being used on a college standard level. None of them were elitist tests, which can, once again, knock a bit of validity and reliability on them. But they were to look more at your current fitness levels, and they're all able to track changes, which is pretty much what we want. So using very, very precise tests isn't necessarily a problem. So the fact that we haven't used them might not be an issue here, as if adaptations to take place, it will be easily noticeable in results again. The tests were spaced out well. They were done in the order we see on the screen. So you had a high intensity style test here, and then down to two that were slightly less demanding. Each had a decent break in between just to get your levels up. Like I said, all of these very short duration, these three here, so you don't have to worry too much about becoming exhausted there. Then you move on to the sit and reach test, which you are sitting around, you don't have to do too much. But in all of these, you're keeping the muscles warm and flexible. The strength test, once again, like a break, you don't have to do much in it. We've still got breaks in between each test, and then you've got down to the final test, the yo-yo test. Of course, you'd had breaks, but you had been working a while before this, which means your body is still probably growing more and more tired with each test. So that could have also knocked the validity of certain results all throughout the test. Even in the first two here, you've done the sprinting, it might tire you in terms of doing the jumping. But equally, we've done 3 attempts on the first on speed, power, and flexibility and strength, just to increase the validity, and it helps to show effort if you're getting relatively consistent results. So overall, each test was made to be very valid and reliable in what we needed to test on you and help us monitor you.